So finally, we have Newton's third law. And this is more commonly called the law of action-reaction. So Newton's third law states that when a body exerts a force on a second body, the second body simultaneously exerts a force equal in magnitude and opposite in direction on the first body. So if you have a person, let's label this person as A. If pinupush niya itong box natin, let's label this box as B, then our person is now exerting a force on box B. So let's call this force exerted on box B as FBA. So again, in-exert siya kay B, galing siya kay A. Okay, so yun yung gagamitin natin na convention. According to Newton's third law, if the person exerts a force on another body, which is in this case ang ating box, we are told that the box at the same time, simultaneously, it will exert a force that is equal in magnitude and opposite in direction doon sa ating first body. So, the moment na pinush nung person na ito, yung ating box, the box in return, or simultaneously, hindi siya in return kasi sabay silang mag-e-exist. Once pinush na ni person, yung box na yon, the box will also exert a force doon sa ating person, which is A. And this force is equal in magnitude. So, tingnan nyo gaano kalakas yung in-exert na force ng person kay box. Yung box then will also push this person with the same amount of force, but in the opposite direction. So, we'll call this force FAB. Okay? So, in-apply kay A, galing ito siya ngayon kay box B. Okay, so we see this experience all the time, no? Kung meron tayong ipupush na anything, so you can try pushing your wall ngayon, you can feel a force exerted doon sa hands mo as you try to push it. So kung laksan mo yung pag-push, you increase yung force applied sa wall, you will also increase yung force exerted by the wall doon sa kamay mo. Mafe-feel mo yan, lalong sasakit, di ba? So, this is Newton's third law. Every time merong isang force that is applied from one object to the other, simultaneously, instantaneously. Kaya ang weird nga na action-reaction siya. Kasi hindi naman talaga siya reaction. Sabay silang mag-i-exist. Na meron ding force that will be exerted to the object that has applied that force. And yung force na yon that is exerted is equal in magnitude. So, pareho sila ng magnitude and opposite in direction. We can also see that to be true for any kind of force. So, that is also true sa gravitational force. So, you see here, siguro if you have a person that is falling towards the earth, we said na if this person has mass, then it will experience a gravitational force. This is what we called the weight. So, ito yung ma-experience nung person, and this gravitational force is from the earth. Okay? So what the Newton's third law is telling us is if this force exists, then meron ding force that is a reaction to this. If this is our action force, there will exist a reaction force. So if we call this force here, yung weight, FPE, no? So ibig sabihin, this is the force exerted on the person. Saan galing yung force na ito? Galing sa Earth, no? That is the gravitational force. Galing sa Earth. We are told by Newton's law na in return, yung taong ito will also exert a force doon sa Earth. So kung hinila nung Earth yung tao, hihilain din nung tao yung Earth. So the Earth is also simultaneously experiencing a force pulling it towards the person. So we can label this FEP. Okay? Force exerted on the earth by the person. No, so that is true. No, every time you are standing on top of the earth, hinihila ka ng earth pababa, hinihila mo din actually yung earth pataas, papunta sa'yo. No? So that is the reality of all forces according to Newton's third law. So it's weird to think na hinihila natin yung earth, but that is true. The same amount of force exerted by the earth sa atin, yun din yung same amount of force that we are exerting on the earth. No? So kunwari, you are 200 newtons, yung mass mo, then hinihila ka ng Earth with a force of 200 newtons. So actually, hinihila mo din yung Earth by a force of 200 newtons. So this is what Newton's third law states. So mathematically, we can represent this as FBA. So by the way, ito yung ginamit natin na notation kanina. So the first subscript here will be the target, kanino na-apply yung force. And then yung second subscript is the source, kanino galing yung force, sino yung nag-a-apply ng force. So the force exerted by object A doon kay object B, no? So ito yung nafe-feel ni object B galing kay object A, is negative of the force exerted on A by B. No? So both of these forces will exist at the same time, but their values are the same in magnitude but opposite in direction. So itong negative na value dito na in-apply natin sa vector na ito, sa force na ito, this will only affect the direction ng object. So negative meaning opposite direction. Pero it will not affect yung magnitude ng vector. Which means that if we look at the magnitudes ng dalawang vector na to, FBA and FAB, they should be equal. So we see here, siguro makita nyo na ano ang usefulness ng Newton's third law in solving problems. So unlike Newton's first law and second law na nagamit talaga natin sila directly in formulating equations, the usefulness of Newton's third law is identifying forces, no? Ano yung force that is acting on the object, ano yung force that is equivalent to it and opposite in its direction. So this will help us fill up ano yung ibang information that is not explicitly stated doon sa problem, no? So pwede natin ito gamitin if we can identify that there is a force applied on an object. We can look at the other object and say na, uy, pareho lang sila ng magnitude pero opposite sila ng direction. So doon yung primary application ng third law. We can use this to add to our given information na hindi naman explicitly stated sa problem. So how do we apply Newton's third law? So for every force, FBA, na makita natin sa mga free body diagrams, there is a force FAB that is applied in return, such that FBA is equal to negative of the vector FAB, and their magnitudes FBA is equal to FAB. So, ang trick lang dito is to identify ano kaya yung action and reaction forces between two bodies. And then we know that these action and reaction forces are actually equal in magnitude but opposite in direction. So, let's consider this situation here. You have two boxes, one placed on top of another. And then you have a person pushing that box. So, if we'll assume that the system is at rest, we can actually draw yung free body diagrams ng objects na ito. So, the free body diagram of object B looks like this. So, it has weight that is always downward. It has a normal force na galing sa inclined plane. And then you have the normal force exerted by the surface kung saan nakapatong yung ating object B. So, for this case, ang ating box B is on top of object A. So, itong normal force na ito is exerted by object A. And then, para magstay siya doon sa taas, at rest, it will have a static friction. So, again, this static friction is also exerted by the surface. So, in this case, ang surface na yon is object A. So, the free body diagram of object B will look like this. So, let's try drawing yung free body diagram ni object A. So, for object A, again, katulad nung object B, meron siyang weight. So, this is the weight of A that is downward. And then, it will experience a normal force. Now, this is due to the surface kung saan siya nakapatong. And our object A is on top of the inclined plane. So, yan yung normal force exerted by the inclined plane. Now, the person is pushing yung ating object A with a force F applied. Now, depending on the force of the F applied, dun nakadepende yung direction ng friction between the box A and then yung ating inclined plane. So we'll assume this time na yung applied force is so strong na kailangan siyang i-counter ngayon ng ating friction force. So our friction force will be in this direction here. So let's label this friction force on A. Now this is because of this inclined plane. Okay, so this is it. Now, we mentioned kanina na both of these forces is exerted by the surface kung saan nakapatong si box B. However, our box B is on top of box A. So, ibig sabihin, kanino galing itong dalawang forces na ito? These two forces are exerted by box A. Now, Newton's third law states na kung meron daw force galing from one object to another, so in this case, these are forces exerted by A on B, then in return, at the same time, meron ding i-exert si box B on A. So in addition dito sa mga forces that we have listed down, meron din siyang may experience na force galing kay B. Now, we've learned that action-reaction forces should be same in magnitude. So this is A to B. But opposite dapat yung direction niya. So ang mafe-feel pala, dahil nakapatong si box B kay A, meron siyang mafe-feel na force. And one of the forces that box A will feel is the reaction doon sa normal force na binigay niya kay B. So pareho sila ng magnitude, that will be A to B. Okay? But the direction is opposite, no? So nasa negative direction siya. So ito ngayon yung action and reaction forces natin. Same magnitude, opposite direction. So mafe-feel ito ni A dahil nakapatong sa kanya si B. Another force that is exerted by A on B is this friction force here. So dapat may reaction din yan pagdating kay A. So we can add that. So in addition to this friction that is in this direction, we can also add this friction here. Okay? So now, meron ng action force, merong reaction force in the form of FSB. Okay? So ito yung forces from B as a reaction dun sa in-apply din ni A kay B. No, reaction dito sa dalawang force na in-apply ni A kay B. Now, we can simplify this para hindi ganun kagulo. We can write these two forces in terms of a single vector. No? So, pwede nating ilagay. So, instead of having those two vectors, we can add a single vector that is the sum nung dalawang forces na yun. So, we are not sure for now kung ano yung direction na yun, but we can assume na maybe downward siya. So, assumption lang tong direction. Pero this is now the sum of those two forces. Where, we can say that FAB, yung vector na ito, na draw natin, FAB, this is the sum of A to B plus FSB. Okay? So, for some problems, this will be very useful kasi alam na kaagad natin anong value nitong force na ito. That is simply the normal force kanina, dun sa free body diagram ni B, plus the friction force. Okay, so that is one application of Newton's third law.